Hello, Africa. Welcome to ETV Ghana's African Women's Voices Show. This is the show that tackles issues pertaining to women as they contribute to national development. How have you been? It's been a week, and I'm so excited to get to meet you again, as we always do, 8 o'clock every Wednesday. So please pull very close to whatever device you're using to watch me. I am so excited. I looked forward to the guest of today, and she really has made my day by showing up, and she's right here. And as usual, I'd like to acknowledge those who are making it possible for us to have the show tonight. I want to say a very big thank you to Chana Shito, Ghana's #1 pepper sauce. If you've not tried it, you need to. My favorite recipe with Chana Shito is with bread. It's fantastic. And also with fried egg. I love it so much. The beautiful thing about Chana Shito is the fact that if you just add it to any meal, it works. And the packaging is on point. If you've not gotten someone something special, buy Chana Shito. Very affordable as well. And the packaging is so beautiful. Get it from the nearest vendor from where you are. I want to say a very big thank you also to Awo's hair. She's giving me this color, and I'm kind of loving it as well. And my dress has been provided by Kubura Diamonds Boutique. So if you want something already made, walk in, find what fits, and you move out and be on the go. Okay, so that's about it, about those who made it possible for us to have the show tonight. I would like to introduce our guest, and well, we put together a little footage on that. I'd like you to listen, after which I get to show her to you live and colored. To stay tuned. Lucy Quist is a managing director at Morgan Stanley, serving as the global head of firm Resilience. She is the author of the book, The Bold New Normal. She is a thought leader and the first Ghanaian woman to head a multinational telecommunications company as the former CEO of Airtel Ghana. She is a co-founder of the Executive Women Network. She served as a vice president of FIFA's Normalization Committee in Ghana. She is a member of the board of INSEED, Mercerships and Margins ID Group. She also serves on the advisory board of Yamachi Biotech. Lucy is a chartered electrical and electronic engineer with a first-class honours degree from the University of East London. She is a member of the Institute of Engineering and Technology UK and holds an MBA from INSEED in France. She has decades of corporate experience with blue-chip companies starting at Ford Motor Company. She has held senior leadership positions at Millicom, Vodafone and Airtel. Her career spans manufacturing, telecommunications, banking and automotive industries in Europe and Africa. She is a passionate advocate who believes in harnessing STEM to advance development around the world by ensuring greater participation by young people. She is a recipient of multiple honors for her exceptional strategic insights, delivery of transformative business results, and dedication to growing people within her organizations. Notable among these are CIMG Marketing Woman of the Year, Telecom CEO of the Year, CSR CEO of the Year, and the Corporate Leadership Award. She is an accomplished international speaker. She has been on platforms such as TEDx Houston, GSMA's Mobile World Congress, INSEED Columbia Business School, and McGill University. In 2016, she was featured on the BBC's Power Women series as one of the top business women driving transformational change in Africa. Lucy has previously served as president of AIMS Ghana and board chair of Petra Pension Trust. Wow. And the story continues. There's a lot more about her that we couldn't really capture. But as we have our conversation, some of them may come out, okay? Did you hear the part where they said that she had first class in electrical engineering? Oh my goodness. Science makes one feel so good. I am excited to introduce Lucy Quist to each and every one of you. Lucy, you're welcome to ETV Ghana's African Women's Voices show.
Thank you so much for having me. And good evening and good day, whenever people are watching this, to everyone who's joining us. Thank you.
Awesome. So the part about the first class, my goodness, So it means like you have to read all the time. I mean, how do you get first class? Not everyone gets a first class.
I know that that is true, that it's not, you know, it tends to be select, but I always say that with goals, you have to decide and understand. You decide on the goal you want to achieve, and you figure out how it's measured. What is required to achieve that goal? So if you want to get a first class degree, you have to figure out what grade gets you first class. What are the criteria, and you try to meet them. And I always wanted to be an engineer, and I was very much inspired by my dad, who's an engineer. Oh, he was an engineer. We lost him last year. And he taught me engineering at home. You know, I've told this story many times. His favorite party trick was to tell people when I was about 5 years old that I could change a fuse on a plug. Because he had taught me how to do it, so he was really excited that, you know, my little
But you
girl,
could do it at 5?
Yeah, because he taught me. He taught me, like, if you teach a child to, it's like teaching a child Lego. Like, if you teach them how to do something, they'll do it. So what he did essentially was to make engineering seem very normal and natural. I didn't understand that it was something that girls don't do. I understood it's just something we all do. My brother is an IT specialist at the National Health Service in the UK. We just assume these things were things people do. He didn't make us feel like the boy or the girl. But very importantly, to your point of the first class, I remember so well that one of my friend's dads was in the UK when I was in university. And he was seeking treatment. Unfortunately, we eventually lost him. But one of the times we went to visit him, he made no qualms about it. He looked me straight in the eye and said, "You have to get first class."
For real? He
Yeah.
set the standard?
Yeah, because he knew me, like, from school in Ghana and so on, because I'd been in school with his daughter, and I'd been around, and he said, "You have to get first class." It wasn't like, "Oh, think about it, oh, do this, oh." It was just a straight, you have to get. And you know, the thing about the human beings is that if someone tells you something in a way that carries conviction, the same way my dad did around engineering, and you start to believe that actually I should. Right? I wanted to do well, but that fine-tuning of the focus on first class, those words he delivered without any explanation, no preamble, no prologue, nothing. It's,
Wow.
you have to get it.
Wow, amazingly.
So that was
you
the
got
mission.
it. Congratulations.
It took a lot of sacrifice.
I can
We
tell.
can come in, get into that, but it took a lot of hard work
Wow.
and a lot of sacrifice for that to happen. It wasn't a walk in the park.
Now we are celebrating you for actually achieving this and
Thank you.
a lot more. Now we are discussing women in science and girls in science and how to encourage them to get into STEM and into that space, because we still believe that it's so difficult and we'll not really be able to have a lot more girls in that space. Looking at how we have more men there and how the boys really do well and are able to get into that space. But from what you've experienced over time, do you think that girls could be that good when it comes to science and even surpass, you know, their male counterparts?
Absolutely. Look, as far as when it comes to academic pursuit, I tell people our brains aren't gendered. They're not gendered in the way we treat them. Yes, physically we appear different. We like different things. You know, we like prettier clothes and all that. It's, you know, it all comes with it. But when you really boil it down, the ability to learn a particular subject comes with a degree of focus and sacrifice and you know, preparation and planning. So when it comes to science in general, science and mathematics, it's equally a matter of that commitment and dedication where you say, okay, I'm going to explore this. But if you start with a mindset of this is difficult, this is too challenging, that's half the battle lost already, because you've decided that something is impossible for you to do. So the first is to dispel this myth that some things are categorically male and some things are categorically female. In fact, I forget the country, one of the Eastern African countries has more girls in STEM than boys, because it's seen as it's a softer subject area.
Soft?
Yeah, and the other thing that comes across is that in you know, several years ago, science, even, you know, when I say several, I mean in like a few hundred years ago, even in sort of Western education, science wasn't seen as a thing to do. It was for those people who would go and tinker. It was people who did the classics and the literature and the Latin and so on.
Yeah.
So we can dispel any myth at all, including the fact that girls can't do science and math, because I know some absolutely amazing women who have gone on to become doctors, engineers, scientists, whatever they want to be, because they just believed and they weren't held back. So first we need to accept that our brains are not gendered in the way that we think they are. They have equal levels of capability and capacity. Yes, we have different temperament, different level of physical strength and stamina that we can overcome through practice. But we shouldn't think that some brains are designed for science and mathematics and some are not.
Great. We'll go for a quick commercial break. When we return, we get to speak about these women that she's known to have become big people in the area of science when we come back. Stay tuned. You're welcome back to ETV Ghana's The African Women's Voices Show. If you just joined us, well, you've missed some portion, but you're going to be able to get through, okay? I'll just remind you of what the basic thing that she's mentioned. She said brains are not gendered. So for those people who think that maybe boys do better or girls do better in science, this is something we don't have to actually even discuss, because the brains are such that if you put your heart to it and you put in the work, it would adjust to whatever kind of demand you place on it. So if you're a girl, you can get into the space and do really well. She actually made a first class in electrical engineering, so that tells you that she put her mind and heart to it and she was able to get there. So before we went on the break, she mentioned that, oh, there are certain African women that she's experienced who are doing well in the space, and would like to talk briefly about them. So join us. So tell us, some of the women, well, I'll start with her. She's here today because she's done so well in the space, so we had to actually let her come to encourage other women. So minus you, tell us about other women, you know, that we should actually look up to and say, yeah, they've done so well.
Look, I start right at home here in Ghana. I mean, everybody knows Professor Elsie Kaufman because of National Science and NSMQ. And she's a brilliant host, but she's also a brilliant STEM career person. She lectures at the university. I believe she lectures in engineering. She's a brilliant, brilliant mind. And every time I've spoken to her, her focus is how to make the course material more accessible, how to ensure that people gain the instruction that they need. And she's very senior in her field, right? And she's a woman, and she doesn't shirk, she doesn't shy away from it. She doesn't behave like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this or I shouldn't do that. She's at the forefront in the country, nationally, and we all see it, inspiring so many young women that, wow, this woman can know all this science and all this mathematics and host the quiz and do all this year after year after year, right? So we have her. We have a lady called Dr. Yakoba Atiasi. She's one of our leading specialists in diabetes. In fact, at the weekend, she's launching a book that she's written. But this is a woman who has studied and focused on diabetes in the context of Ghana. So not only is she a doctor, but she specialized in a specific field that has a big impact in our society and in our community. And so she's able to not only care for parents, but advise other doctors and support them as well. I mean, it's impressive to see that a leading specialist in this field in Ghana is a woman, right? These are examples. I've given you an engineering example. I've given you a medical example. If you look to East Africa, and she died not too long ago, but Mathai Wangari, she's also
an environmentalist.
Yes, exactly. And her legacy is that she applied her science knowledge to forestation. Because her whole point was she focused on two things. Well, she focused on many things, but two of her key messages were around the need to protect our forestry, and she took a very scientific approach. So she just wasn't planting trees for the sake of planting trees, but which trees will thrive, which trees will produce, produce in some time. But the other thing she talked a lot about is food. And she talked about the need for, in terms of our constitution and the way we're put together, to eat food that's grown in our environment. And it's true, wherever you go in the world, people thrive best when they eat the food that grows in their environment. So she was a big advocate for moving away, but scientific base. It wasn't just an emotional move away from
support your brand,
exactly.
support
No,
your
it wasn't emotional.
Food.
It was actually a scientific basis of saying that actually eating this food is better for you physiologically. It's not just a nice to have, right? So we have this amazing women. We have so many of them up and down. You mentioned in your introduction that I did work with AIMS, the African Institute for Mathematics and Science. 30% of the candidates or the participants are women. And this is very high level mathematical study. I'm not talking about O-level or WASI or something. This is women who are postgraduate in mathematics and fields of mathematics in there. So we have a lot of women, more than we realize, who are not just advocates, but actually actively part of it. I went to school with several women now. Again, I can give you another example. One of our leading geriatric specialists, Dr. Phyllis Teria, she's a woman. And she's one of the leading geriatric specialists in the country. She flies around the country in Ghana to provide geriatric care. And for anyone who doesn't know what geriatric specialization is, it's a specialization in looking after old people, right? So the kinds of ailments that prevail in old people, she was my father's doctor actually before he died, is her specialization. You don't hear about it very much.
No.
But a woman is one of the leading specialists in that area of care and has to go around the country to provide her insight to many patients around the country. So we have a lot of women for whom the study of science and mathematics has led them into career fields that some may say are not typical, but actually they're doing a brilliant job in these fields. And again, they're not doing it differently from, yes, they're adding maybe their own touch to it, but every person has their own touch that they bring to it. But they're top of their class, top of their their peer group, and really delivering on what they've studied.
Wow, I feel so good to be a woman, hearing all these fantastic stories about women who are doing so well in the space. So let me ask you this question. Why then are we shying away from science? Sometimes as children, we start off very early, we like sciences, we get to a point, and then it's just fading away. Is it based on the fact that you hear people say that science is difficult? What would it be? I'd like you to send your comments to our Facebook page. I'd like to read them and understand. But I have my own challenge, because I'm very sure that whoever is watching is going to be wondering, are you also a woman in science? Well, I'm a woman in communication. I didn't do like the pure science, and it had a lot to do with the fact that the one who was in charge of science, as I had to choose chemistry, didn't really help, in how to impact the knowledge. He made it so difficult, and you couldn't ask questions. If you ask too much questions, then you're shut down. Look, if you don't know this, then I don't know why you're here. You need to be somewhere else. So there was no motivation or encouragement to say, you know what, you can do this. I need you to do A, B, C, and let's see how well you get there. I didn't get that, so
You're
I
so
was
right.
put off.
Unfortunately, what happens is that sometimes even the people who teach science and math believe that it's this sort of mythical, special subject area where only special people can do it. And so they give off that vibe to the student that it's, it's not a matter of putting your mind to it and practicing. It's either you've got it or you haven't, which is not true. I remember so well when my oldest son came home one day. He was in class 1. And he came home in tears. I was like, well, after school, I said, what's the problem? He says, Mommy, I can't do science. I'm like, what? What do you mean you can't do science? He said, no, Mommy, I can't do science. And he kept repeating, I can't do science. I said, okay, sit down. I said, okay, while you're sitting down, are you breathing? He said, yes, I'm breathing. I said, you know how you like animals? He says, yes. Okay. So do you like to know more about them? I said, yes. And I asked him such questions about everyday life things. I said, do you know when you do science, they'll teach you all of these things and they'll explain it to you? He's like, really? I said, yeah, when you do science, And so I didn't even explore the conversation around did somebody say something? Who did? I was like, whoever has put this thought in your head, we are dispelling it right here, right now. And I remember years later, I asked him, why did you do that? Why did you come home crying that you can't do science? And he said, well, Mom, I thought to do science, they expect you to know all the things already. I said, no, what's the point? And I'm happy to say that he's continued his education in science. He loves it. It's his thing, his biology, his chemistry. But this is somebody who literally was put off. And I think this happens a lot. We have to be patient with people. The thing about it is that mathematics in particular, beyond basic arithmetic, which everybody needs to know, and this is the thing, people assume that when we say people should do math, everyone needs to be a whiz at calculus or trigonometry and so on. There's a certain level of mathematics, and I always say at least particularly around the arithmetic and algebra, that everyone needs to know because it's for life. You don't want to be cheated on your finances and the wrong calculation and so on.
True.
So we all need that level. We need to encourage people that they need to get that level. The higher level sort of calculus, trig, and beyond, right? Like university mathematics. Not everyone's going to do that. But that's not why we're not going to do mathematics. We all have a level of mathematics and a very minimum with hard, clear arithmetic and algebra that we all need to know just to problem solve in our daily lives. It's not none of the complicated stuff. Then you can take it to a new level over time. I say the same about science. I always give children this example. Why is it that when your mother cooks for you, she puts kontomire, she puts some fish and meat, she puts some yam? Why didn't she just give you yam? Why didn't she just give you kontomire? The fundamental job that we have in providing food for people is making sure it's a balanced diet. Science helps us understand why that diet is balanced. Why does the kontomire and the fish and the yam make a complete meal? Really to understand. Why do we need to get the proportions right? Or another question I'll throw at everyone listening. I ask people the question a lot. Who do you think the primary health caregivers are in any society? Not just Ghana, not just Africa, in any society. Who is the first healthcare provider for an individual?
Mom?
Exactly. Exactly. It's mom who's deciding whether this condition is critical enough, whether your temperature is too high, you need to go to a hospital, whether, even when you've been given a prescription, it's mom who's normally monitoring whether you're taking it.
True.
So we seem to underestimate the importance, again, of having a sufficient level of understanding of science, particularly as women, actually. If anything, we should be encouraging more women into science because they have a fundamental duty of care, which we take on, that benefits from the scientific knowledge of why we do what we do and how we do what we do, right? At what point do you understand whether a temperature can lead to a child convulsing? Heaven forbid. But it does happen, right? So actually, we should be opening science and mathematics up so much more for women and girls and saying to them, we absolutely need you. And this comes before we get into the career conversation, which I'm sure you're going to ask me about.
Yes.
But it's the everyday life that we need science and mathematics to live well.
Great. I never thought about it that way as to the roles mothers play when it comes to primary health care. You are so right on that point because we do the monitoring.
Yes.
We ensure you're the one taking your medication. Once you're getting warm, we're trying to regulate,
Yeah.
trying to bring it down to ensure that you don't get to a point where you get to convulse.
Yes.
Women play all that role. So we should be in that space.
Absolutely.
We
it's
should
our
be there.
space,
And let's
100%.
encourage the girls to also get into that space.
And what you realize is that we inadvertently do some of the science anyway, whether they teach us or not.
Or
So you
not.
might as well go and learn it.
With the kontomire and the yam and
Yes.
the egg
Yes.
example you just gave.
If you don't eat
Just
the egg,
know.
they'll say to you, eat your egg.
True.
Why is she insisting? Because she knows that based on everything else on your plate, you need that protein as well.
Yeah.
She knows.
Thank you, mummies. And
We
really
love them.
We love them so much. We appreciate all the efforts that you put into us, and see how we're all bubbling, how we're looking, thanks to you all. So let's move away a little bit from the STEM. We'll still come back to it. Over the weekend, we captured something on your social media page. We saw you having a good time with the girls from Wesley Girls High. And if we can put that up, I saw you present an award to a younger girl.
Yes.
And you mentioned that she's the daughter to a friend and a classmate.
Yes, she
How
is.
did it make you feel?
It was absolutely amazing. So, actually, her mother is the geriatric specialist I mentioned, Dr. Phyllis Insia.
Wow.
Dr. Phyllis Seria, sorry, she was in Insia in school. Dr. Phyllis Seria. And it was just such an amazing feeling. First of all, to present the awards to the girls, you know, it's such a moment of pride. And I remember those moments when I was in school and you walk up to the stage and you're thinking, wow, all that hard work is being recognized and applauded. But to do it for a friend's daughter, when we're all there together, and her mother was there in the crowd as well, was absolutely amazing. Her mum did send me a message the next day to tell me how, you know, excited and happy her daughter was to receive the award from me. But it's such a reminder that we've reached a stage where our children are getting through school and our children are becoming young women and young men. And it reinforces for me our responsibility to ensure that we create a country, a continent, an environment where they can thrive. We need to be the ones, you know, that literal saying of standing on the shoulders of giants. You don't just want them to stand on your shoulders. You want to create an environment where they can aspire to be the very best of themselves and self-actualize. And for me, I think this is an amazing opportunity to share that moment with the family.
Oh, that's great. I see how happy most of the old girls are, like, to get to see each other again
Yes.
after some years. And, you know, good reunion.
Yes.
And the colors all working out, you know, the green and the gold
Yes.
looking so lovely. Anyway, towards the end of the show, we're going to open the phone line. So if you're someone from the Wesley girls, it would be good for you to put your call through and say hi to one of the old girls. If you're currently there now, okay, you're not watching TV, so unfortunately, you're not going to be able to talk to her. But that's
But if you're
good.
from any other school as well,
Oh,
right?
sure, yes. Any other person could also call. You can send in your comments.
Yes.
Towards the end of the show, I'm going to definitely read them. So we'll go for a quick commercial break. When we return, the conversation continues. You're welcome back to ETV Ghana's African Women's Voices show, where the conversation is getting much more interesting. We're coming towards the part of the challenges that women face in the space of science. So while we were on the break, we were talking about the part where we get to help the children with homework and everything. So as a woman, are you able to help your children with their homework so far, especially the grown ones, when they bring their math home and their physics and chemistry? Are you able to do that? That's the reason you need to be able to push your children, girls, into the space, so they get to be able to help their own children, your grandchildren, to do their homeworks, okay? That which we couldn't do, we need to motivate the girls to be able to do that. So now that brings us to the career conversation. How do we get the guidance counselors, you know, those who help them in school in terms of choosing whether they should move into this space? What do you think we need to have them do to be able to better make our children understand that they need to move into that space?
Yeah, you ask a very important question, because as an individual, the people who help shape and form you are not only your parents, right? You're encountering your peers, but also very importantly, other adults. So we do need to do some of the work on the adults, whether it's the teachers, some teachers, not all, but some teachers, and some guidance counselors. I actually have a real life example where, you know, years ago when I was at Airtel, we had a connected classroom session, and it was based around science clubs in the school. And then with the connected classroom, what we did was we provided the children with video links. And in those, you know, it wasn't that long ago, but it feels long ago because in the schools we were in, the children weren't very familiar with video calling.
Okay.
Right? And I give you this example not to focus on the video calling, but rather the response of one of the teachers in one of the schools, right? And these are children who are in JHS. And we talk about the need to engage with technology and be familiar. We talk about coding and so on. And so these clubs are an opportunity to really engage these children and for us to go ourselves to engage them. And in one of the schools, one of the teachers who was actually responsible for the club said something, you know, these were her words, computing at this age. So in her mind, JHS kids are too young to have access to computing knowledge. So this is an example where we need to work on the people who have responsibility for children and their choices to get them to understand, even if you were held back or you were discouraged, you can change your mindset to embrace the fact that we need to get more of our children, particularly the girls, engaged in science and mathematics to go on to careers in medicine, engineering, you know, and other fields. technology fields. So we definitely need to work on those stakeholders. We need to also show children more examples, which is what you're doing today. We need to show them more examples of, particularly women, because a young girl can see in herself a woman, when a woman like me stands in front of her and she's like, but this woman, she looks like me, she's just a grown-up version of me. So if she's doing this, I can do it too. And we need to make it such that we equally applaud girls in science and mathematics, because we do sometimes have a challenge where it's seen as so tough that a girl in science and mathematics is not feminine enough, or she's not cool enough. And you know, at some age, girls get into a bit of peer pressure and so on as well. And then it feels like, oh, if this is not what cool girls do, then I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, cool girls do the literature. They speak the English and do all the poems and all that.
You can do both. So this is the interesting thing. When I was doing science for my O levels, I did science and mathematics, but I also did French and literature, and I loved all of them. I loved all of them. The thing that I don't like, which I've had to overcome even in my adult, I still make sure I consciously tell myself, that's one of the things I do. If I'm not good at something, I tell myself that this thing is going to need extra work. I don't like repetition. So I don't watch movies over and over. You know, some people watch the same movie over, which is great, but I kind of know what's going to happen.
And they get to learn all the lines.
Exactly. But you need that for literature. So I literally had my study timetable, and I had slots for literature, and I would force myself. When I had literature on my study timetable, I'm like, no, you can't go and solve a math problem. You're going to have to read that book, even though you read it the last time. So by the time I got to a literature exam, I practically memorized all the books, which you need to really, support your narrative and make your case and your arguments. Now, ask me, if I hadn't focused and studied literature alongside science and mathematics, how was I going to write a book?
Exactly. Because I was going to ask you that question. How did you get to write the book? For someone who is so into science.
Yeah.
But now I have an understanding. You actually did literature.
I did. And so we have to make sure that in defining ourselves, even in the case of science and mathematics, it doesn't mean that you become sort of so narrow that that's the only thing you know. Being able to articulate yourself, whether it's verbally or in written communication, it's really important, because ultimately all these careers become platforms for leadership opportunities. They become platforms to impact the wider world. And to do that, areas like skills like communication are not skills that you can take for granted, right? Even as a doctor, how are you going to engage your patients if you can't communicate? If you can't translate your knowledge into everyday English to engage your patient? So I also encourage people that don't think that because you're an engineer, you can't do anything else. You can't learn French. You can't learn literature. You can't do any. You have to have just this one-track mind. It's actually really beneficial to know other things as well and apply yourself. What I will say is that I believe I fundamentally think like an engineer. So when I'm faced with any situation, even if it's not a science problem, I think about what are the drivers that created this outcome? What is the system? How do I break it down? What are the things I need to tweak and change to get a different outcome? That's very sort of a structured way of thinking, even if it's not a science or mathematics problem I'm solving.
That's amazing. Wow, I got that, and it really sank in. I'm going to have to practice this. So part of what we also dug out some time ago on her, she wasn't even here, was what happened on January 1st, where there was this poll, there was this award, and 100 people were selected. And wow, to our joy, we had some people from Ghana being selected, and Lucy was part of them. Let's take you back on that memory lane, and we get to ask her questions around that. Please, let's talk about the reputation poll.
Reputation Poll International, a leading global reputation firm, has released the 2023 list of 100 most reputable Africans. The list features individuals from diverse sectors including governance and leadership, entertainment, human rights and advocacy, education, and business. The selection criteria are integrity, visibility, and impact. Among these names were Professor Jane Nana Opoku Ajiman, Chancellor of the Women's University in Africa; Lucy Quist, Managing Director for Morgan Stanley; Theresa Ayoade, Executive Director of multiple concept groups. ETV Ghana African Women's Voices Show wants to celebrate you and congratulate you on your endeavor.
And we are celebrating her live and colored. We did that over our 60 seconds update, and she didn't even know about it. Like, she was just somewhere, and the thing was just flying around on social media that, okay, African Women's Voices Show has put together this footage out there.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I was really touched when I saw it.
Aww.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, congratulations to you
Thank
once
you.
again.
Thank you.
So looking at the selection and what, you know, how you got there, could you just walk us through gradually, maybe just within a very short moment, what would you think brought you where you are for 100 people to be selected across Africa, and they singled you out and said, look, we've looked at your work and we believe you belong here? What is it that you've done consistently that brought you there?
I'm really grateful for the description you gave, because I'm really amazed. I mean, I looked at some of the names. I'm like, okay, you put my name next to this person's name. I spent some time actually reflecting on the fact that they talked about integrity, impact, and visibility. And I would say that perhaps of the three things, one or two are things I've been extremely intentional about, and one or two are products of what I've been intentional about. The one thing I've been intentional about of all the three that's consistent is integrity. It's extremely important to me. In fact, it's one of my professional values. So I define for myself my professional values as integrity, excellence, and generosity. Very important to me.
Okay.
And integrity isn't just about the big things, you know, so people tend to think big things like corruption and so on, but it's also the little things. It's being timely. It's delivering when you say you'll get things done. It's about being reliable. It's about the fact that you have the ability to say to people, this particular thing you're asking me, actually, I don't know, or I can't do it, or I can go and find out. So that transparency, that honesty, and that straightforwardness is extremely important. It matters to me. I'd much rather you said to me, oh, Lucy, you don't have the skills for X. If you told me I don't have a particular skill, yeah, and I truly don't have it, because I don't know everything in the world, I wouldn't be upset about that, especially if it was true. I would be broken if you thought that I lacked in integrity. Right?
Okay.
I'm not doing it for the purpose of someone else or to show you, but it's really because it's a value I believe in, and I hold myself to it. I have to hold myself to integrity every single day. The poll also talked about impact, and I think there's a balance between how much of impact I've been intentional about and how much of it has been as a byproduct of the work that I do. From a very young age, I experienced in Ghana a really challenging time. I know we talk about this, that this current time is challenging, but I always point back to 1983 and the hunger and everything that went on in Ghana. It was a really difficult time. And I was a young child. I was 9 years old, and I still remember to this day the desire that was born in me through that experience to make an impact on my society and my community. So there's that element of impact that was intentional, but some of your impact also comes to the work that you do and how the work inevitably makes an impact. So that's why I say some of it is intentional, some of it is a byproduct. Of the work that I do. And equally, when I think about visibility, true story, I remember joining Airtel, and as most women do, I'm sure most women listening can relate, I was like, put my head down, just do the work, blah, 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 let's do things. And my boss called me and he's like, but you're in charge of this company and no one is hearing from you. I said, but we've got work to do. We've got so many things we need. The team and I, we've got work to do. And he's like, no, you're the CEO of the company. You need to get out there and talk to people. You know, in my mind, very, very feminine way of assessing situations. I shouldn't say feminine. I mean, not feminine as in the way we dress, but feminine as in thinking about, we work really hard. This is what people need to understand. the average woman in the same profession works so much
hard.
harder than a guy.
We just want to provide the solutions.
Exactly.
There are
And she
issues.
wants,
Let's
and she
provide
knows that there are
solutions.
people thinking that maybe she's not right for the role, so she's really working hard, right? And I know you can't just do the hard work. You need to go out there and represent the company. So that's how visibility starts. And I kid you not, I took an engineer's approach to that one, even that one. Called my
Okay.
team into a meeting. I'm like, so I need to be out there. What is our plan? What are the things I will talk about, I won't talk about? What is for someone else to talk about in the team? So, and it was all laid out. So I don't just go out, to this day, I don't just go out and say, oh yes, I'll talk. So if you called me to this show and I felt the subject you wanted to tackle was not something I know about, back to integrity, I'll just tell you politely that I'm honored that you've called me, right? It's not a subject I know about, so I'm not the right person to come and speak. And so I was very structured and strategic about what that visibility meant and what I would touch on. And of course, STEM was one of my passions, but I talk about leadership a lot and about change and transformation. So that element, again, was a byproduct of the work that I'm doing that led into you've got to do more, and it's carried on from there. So, no, I'm truly honored. And I think it's one of those areas where you take a step and then you keep taking the next step and the next step and the next step. So thank you, Reputation International, and thank you too for celebrating.
Great. Director, are we able to open the phone line just to take a few calls? I was enjoying the whole conversation. Okay. Okay, so we'll keep trying. Usually when we want to open the phone lines, it's always jammed. Everybody's trying to get through and everything. Whoa, it's been amazing. So now let's, I'm sure we have just maybe about 5 minutes. But we're going
Really?
to- yeah, 1 hour has just
The
passed
time
by.
has flown
Really
by.
flies. So you try and see if you can get in. But if you're not able to, don't worry. Put in your comments later. She's going to read all the comments and then do all the laughing. Hey, somebody even got in touch. Mary Kumson. Mary, yeah, when I posted, she was like, hey.
Hey, Mary, hey.
So let's say hello to Mary.
Hi,
I'm very
Mary.
sure Mary's going to try to
Yes.
actually get through, just in case you don't get through, but now she knows
Yes.
that you definitely tried
Hi.
to get through, okay? So let's just round it up and say, what should we do to encourage more women in the space, even though basically most of the conversation we've had has covered on it, but let's try to like summarize and so it gets home for people to really understand that we need to do A, B, C to be able to encourage girls.
Yeah, I think first of all, we need to start young. I gave you the example of my dad. I always tell people that by the time I realized that in many societies, people think women shouldn't be in science and mathematics. I was really old. Like, when I say was really, I was in my late teens. By that time, I was already on the journey. And I realized that, oh, so some people think I shouldn't be doing this? Well, my mindset has already been programmed a certain way. So first of all, get to them young. I'd recommend primary school age where girls have exposure and access to science and mathematics education as well. Really important. And then I would say that the people who have the greatest influence, parents and children, we should open their minds up as well. A girl studying science and mathematics will not make her hard, will not make her have too much
because
knowledge.
I mean, you look really flexible because we think they have so much muscles, those who
I
do the
heard
sciences.
all those things. I heard all those
I
things.
heard it too.
We need to tell them that it doesn't take away from any other aspiration they have as young girls or women to study science and mathematics. I mean, look, I'm the BlizzCon ambassador.
Yeah,
for 2022.
congratulations.
So, you can still do all the other things. And the other thing, the third thing I would say is that let's put in front of them, like you have done today, more examples of women who have been in these kinds of positions and celebrate them. Not just celebrate the women who are further along in their careers, but celebrate the younger ones, the ones who, like the one who I applauded, I gave the award to. She's in medical school now. She actually came back for her award. Or the ones who are in various levels of education. Let's celebrate them. I heard, again, another East African country where the same way we have beauty pageants, they have a STEM pageant now for girls.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So now there's aspiration together. Let's celebrate them. Let's tell them that we really want you. And then let me make sure that I make this point. The reason why I advocate so much for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and I advocate for all young people to participate, male and female, but we need more female participation to create balance is that we have a deficit, right? We have a deficit in people who have backgrounds in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, or even
Okay.
at school level. Let's just break it down as science and mathematics. And the reason why this deficit is such a challenge is that in a country like ours, where we're trying to develop and build, we need doers. We need people who know how to make things. Not just people who can theorize and ideate, but the people who can translate ideas into actual products and services and solve problems. We need so many of them. And if you look at our pipeline as a country in terms of science and mathematics education, it really drops off. By the time people graduate, the vast majority are not in science and mathematical fields at all. So if we're in a country where we need accelerated development, science and mathematics fields are where you accelerate. We need more people in healthcare. We need more people who know how to operate machinery. We talk about manufacturing. I started my career in manufacturing. If you don't have engineers who know how to operate machines, you're not going to create a manufacturing base. It's just not going to happen. So I could go on and on and on, but every time you look at your child, particularly if she's a girl, think about the fact that she can play a massive role in turning the dial in our development if she has learned how to make things and do things and solve problems that we really have. And so for me, I have a little bit of a selfish reason. I want to be a happy old woman with all these science and mathematics people running the country beautifully.
Amazing. It's been wonderful having Lucy here, and we definitely will want to have her again. Because she's most of the time maybe may not be available, we have to arrange. Even if it's via Zoom, we would want to hear from you.
I shall be back. Thank you.
I love that. So thank you very much for joining us tonight, and the show continues on Saturday. I'll say the repeat broadcast at 9 a.m. if you didn't get to watch everything. However, we streamed on Facebook, so you can go on our Facebook page to check it out, all right? It will be uploaded on our YouTube page tomorrow. So until we meet again, do enjoy the rest of our interesting lineup for you. Bye-bye.